stay behind, you may be trapped for days before emergency crews can reach you.
New storms bringing new threats to the west, and many people near Southern California's burn scars are on high alert tonight. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. Los Angeles County first responders say they're most concerned about the potential for new mudslides in the communities that were devastated by wildfires back in January. Steady rain already is falling across the region. These are live pictures here from Los Angeles International Airport, and you can see the wet roads as people make their way into the terminals. Authorities believe that the burn areas across Southern California may be more vulnerable to mudslides now, even compared to the last round of storms to hit the area. Fox 11's Christina Gonzalez shows us how people are preparing.
The first in a series of storms moving onto the foothills between Pasadena and Sierra Madre, where a steady line of trucks removes debris from wash basins. Bailey Canyon, a time-lapse here, showing the non-stop work. The same at this basin in Sierra Madre, where officials are saying
The last storm filled every debris basin to capacity, and while county and city contractors have been working tirelessly to clear them, we are not starting from empty.
they were empty in February when they still had issues with mud flow.
We saw from the last storm that some areas got hit really bad.
Aside from the concern of burn scar area mud coming down, there's also what you're about to show you here. See that sheen on that water? This water is coming directly from the homes that were destroyed, and there's a concern of the toxic stuff flowing into this. Bobcats putting debris onto trucks to remove as much as possible as quickly as they can.
Don't know if they've even cleaned everything up at this point. Could get more. Yeah, it's been tough, and it's going to be years to go. You know, we're in it for the long haul with this, I think.
If a mud flow occurs, public safety and public works personnel will not be able to enter an active debris flow zone. This means that if you stay behind, you may be trapped for days before emergency crews can reach you.
And that was Fox 11's Christina Gonzalez reporting for us tonight. For more, let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Roberta Gonzalez, who is tracking the system that is posing those new threats across Southern California, especially in the burn zones, Roberta.
Exactly. And you know, Alex, I was there a month ago with the Pacific Palisades and the Eaton fire, and I'm very concerned about debris flows as well as mud or landslides. And right now, this particular area of low pressure is targeting Southern California as opposed to Northern California. As far as copious amounts of precipitation is concerned, it's basically along that coastline around PCH all the way into Oceanside and into San Diego. And if we can zoom on in here, you'll see the areas of pink and white. We have some very light snowfall around Big Bear at this hour. In fact, a little bit of sleet as you make tracks around the Cajon Pass out of the Los Angeles Basin, out of San Bernardino County as you're heading towards the Barstow and Victorville and Apple Valley areas into the high desert. So the rain is going to begin to taper off later tonight. It has already shifted out of the Bay Area of San Francisco, which was on the northern fringe of this system here. Daytime highs today were hampered due to the fact that we did have the cloud cover. Looks like Los Angeles doesn't want to report now, but it did top off near 60 degrees, which is well below average for this time of the year. All my stations aren't checking in. How about that? They were there just moments ago. But anyway, you do see that we have blue skies over Seattle at 50 degrees, which is typical for this time of the year. San Francisco did top off today at 54, which is well below the average of 61 degrees. And Phoenix was below average with their deck of cloudiness. Typically, they should be in the mid-70s at this time of the year, but they checked in right around 70 degrees. So what's happening next as we take a look at our West Coast forecast here? You see that the bulk of the activity has now traversed out. It's even bypassed the Vegas area. But we have this secondary system that's poised in position to interfere with the West Coast from Monterey all the way into the Los Angeles area, bypassing Seattle. You have more more sunshine than what California is experiencing. How rare is that? But by Friday night, you see another system that'll work its way into the Pacific Northwest, but very little accumulation is expected. Certainly good news for all the people in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and take a look at the forecast, and we'll put it in writing here because we certainly didn't get that when we're taking a look at the daytime highs. Seattle, as we head towards the weekend, we're talking about mid-50s on Friday, and over the weekend, maybe a splash and dash shower, but that's about it. Across the San Francisco Bay Area, you're looking a little bit more seasonal, but wait, we have rain by Monday in that particular area. In fact, it looks like copious amounts of precipitation next week for northern portions of the state of California. Full sunshine as you dry out on Friday and Saturday across Los Angeles and Phoenix and Denver. No worries, you're looking pretty decent.
All right, we will keep an eye on those incoming systems, though. Roberta, thank you. Los Angeles County is suing Southern California Edison, alleging the utility's electrical equipment caused the devastating Eaton fire back in January. That fire killed 17 people, destroyed over 9,000 homes, and caused hundreds of millions of dollars in damage in the Altadena area. Officials say witness accounts and photos show the fire started right under Southern California Edison power lines in Eaton Canyon. The county wants the utility to pay for cleanup, rebuilding, and lost tax revenue. The utility says a transmission line fault did occur on the night of the fire, but it said in a filing with California's Public Utilities Commission that there is no evidence its equipment started the fire. Environmental advocates are closely monitoring the water quality at beaches across Southern California following those fires in January. Public health officials in Los Angeles are urging people to follow all of the warnings and avoid ocean water near burn areas because of potential contamination. They say the fire didn't just burn brush and land, but also homes and other materials, leading to elevated levels of contaminants.
Our team is looking at bacteria levels, which is something that we are experts at Heal the Bay. We test for bacteria levels all the time. Things like heavy metals, PCBs, PFAS, other things that might be in the water. This is a unique and somewhat unprecedented fire in that it is an urban wildfire. It was not just vegetation that burned.
Experts predict it could take months to years for water quality to return to normal. Hundreds of Southern California high schoolers affected by those fires got some uplifting news, delivered in a video message by Hollywood star Steve Carell.
I work with a wonderful charity based out of Virginia called Alice's Kids. And Alice's Kids wanted me to let you know that they will be paying for all of your prom tickets. And if you have already paid for your prom tickets, they will reimburse you for your prom tickets. It's a pretty good deal. Have fun, enjoy the prom, and remember, this is Steve Carell.
And yes, it is a pretty good deal. The reaction as graduating students at 6 high schools in Altadena found out the price of their prom tickets was being covered by a nonprofit that Carell works closely with. John Muir High School posted video of the students cheering that news after watching the video during an assembly. The organization Alice's Kids is donating about $175,000 to make all this happen. By the way, prom tickets typically range from about $100 up to $150. Sheriff's deputies outside Denver say they've located a boy who was kidnapped 7 years ago in Georgia. They posted an image online of what Abdul Aziz Khan looked like when he disappeared at the age of 7. Authorities say they found him at age 14 after catching up with his non-custodial mother in Douglas County, Colorado yesterday. Investigators located Rabia Khalid as deputies responded to reports of suspicious activity at a vacant property. Khalid and a man named Blake Bourgeois have been booked on several charges, including kidnapping as well as identity theft. Democratic mayors from across the country were in Washington, D.C. today for a congressional hearing on sanctuary cities. The mayors of Boston, Chicago, New York, and Denver defended those policies. They argued sanctuary cities are safer than those without protections for immigrants. And the mayor said Congress and the Trump administration are exaggerating crime committed by immigrants to score political points.
Americans expect us to do more than point fingers. They expect us to solve problems. So if Denver can find a way to put aside our ideological differences long enough to manage a crisis we didn't choose or create, it seems only fair to ask that the body that is actually charged with solving this national problem, this Congress, can finally commit to do the same.
The Trump administration accuses the cities of hindering deportation operations and protecting people who are in the U.S. illegally. However, the courts have repeatedly upheld the legality of most sanctuary laws. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, the Trump administration shifting the federal government's position on a closely watched abortion case in Idaho, what this could mean for similar laws in other states. Also, a new take on self-driving cars here in the West. Watch as they get put to the test in Las Vegas.
I wanted to really create a social experience, right? So before cars, there were carriages, and they were like this, because that is actually the natural way you want to interact with people.
The Trump administration has moved to drop an Idaho emergency abortion case, a decision here with national implications. That lawsuit, which was originally filed by the Biden administration, argued emergency room doctors must provide abortions if necessary to stabilize pregnant women in Idaho. Idaho will now be allowed to fully enforce its strict abortion ban even in emergencies, although Idaho says its law does allow for life-saving abortions. Leaders say this could all set the stage for other states to enact similar laws. Months after Arizona voters approved a measure to expand reproductive rights, a judge has now declared the state's existing 15-week abortion ban unconstitutional. Voters approved Prop 139 back in November, which enshrines abortion rights into the state's constitution and allows for abortions up until the point of fetal viability, which is about 22 to 24 weeks. The legality of abortions in Arizona has been in flux ever since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, but today's ruling permanently blocks that 15-week ban and bars state leaders in Arizona from taking action against abortion rights. The country's big three automakers have another month to get ready for President Trump's new tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada. The White House says the president spoke with the leaders of Stellantis, General Motors, and Ford today. He granted them a one-month exemption from his 25% tariff. Today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt spoke to reporters about concerns that will not be enough time for the automakers to adjust their operations.
He told them that they should get on it, start investing, start moving, shift production here to the United States of America, where they will pay no tariff. That's the ultimate goal.
Leavitt says the president decided on a one-month exemption due to the reciprocal tariffs he wants to take effect coming up on April 2nd. Those reciprocal tariffs will apply to countries imposing tariffs on U.S. exports. Stores across the country are warning consumers to expect price hikes because of the president's new tariffs. Fox 10's Lauren Clark spoke with a food supplier in Phoenix about what she expects will happen with her business.
Well, one food supplier today just explained how much we get from Mexico for produce, everything from avocados, tomatoes, watermelon, and more. And those prices with the tariffs are going to go up not only for suppliers, but also to consumers, too. For owner Sonia Rivera,
watermelons come from Mexico, the oranges come from Mexico.
The roots of RS Produce run deep. The family business started 3 generations ago when her grandfather sold produce out of the back of his truck in Tucson.
It's been around the family for years.
And for years, they've reaped the fruits of their labor through economic recessions and a pandemic. But this week, new obstacle is in their way.
We are now having to pay 25% of what any imported load costs us.
The Trump administration smacked 3 of the U.S.'s biggest importers, China, Mexico, and Canada, with tariffs on many imported goods. President Trump argued the move will protect U.S. industries and prevent the flow of fentanyl into our borders.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance.
A disturbance already felt in the market as the Dow plummeted by nearly 700 points Tuesday, causing some business leaders to worry and infuriating leaders like Canada's Justin Trudeau.
This is a very dumb thing to do.
And for Phoenix businesses like Rivera's, there's also some panic.
We've definitely had to last minute scramble and see what we're going to do.
The majority of her business produce sold to customers like street vendors or Mexican dessert shops and restaurants comes from across the southern border.
Watermelons, mangoes, so many different type of produce that is brought from Mexico.
As she waits for the full impact of the 25% import tax, she says they have no choice but to raise prices.
So we're having to now increase our prices, and unfortunately the customers like ourselves will have to take a hit.
Reporting here in Phoenix, Lauren Clark, Fox 10 News.
Farmers and ranchers in Montana are bracing to keep their livelihoods afloat as tariffs on Canada could threaten business. The president of the Montana Farmers Union, Walter Schweitzer, says tariffs will decrease the product prices when they go to sell, which will have a major impact on farmers' bottom line.
We ship a lot of our feeder calves north to Canada to be fed out and finished. And so we have a pretty good working relationship with our neighbors to the north, and this is going to strain that relationship. But you know who's going to pay the biggest price in all of these trade wars? The consumers.
Schweitzer says his message to Montana farmers is to hang in there, and he says he is advocating in Washington, D.C. for family farmers and ranchers. Canadian leaders are fighting back with a bold move in this trade war. Today, the Premier of Ontario announced the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world is removing U.S. products from its stores.
We need to be ready to escalate using every tool in our toolkit. That includes surcharges or even outright restrictions on the critical minerals and electricity we supply to the United States. The critical minerals and electricity they depend on.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada will put retaliatory tariffs on more than $100 billion worth of American goods. The Trump administration says it's possible a new trade deal is coming.
So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff, but I think he's going to figure out, you do more, and I'll meet you in the middle some way, and we're going to probably be announcing that tomorrow. So somewhere in the middle will likely be the outcome, the president moving with the Canadians and Mexicans, but not all the way.
Now, traders on Wall Street somewhat encouraged by statements like those you just heard. The Dow gained 485 points today, just over 1%. The Nasdaq added 267 points, so 1.5% gain, and the S&P 500 was up by 64 points on the trading session. Shares of the big three automakers were all higher during today's session. The Trump administration is ordering the Veterans Administration to prepare for major staffing cuts that could potentially lead to some 80,000 jobs being eliminated. That's about 17% of its workforce. Today, veterans protested outside a VA facility in the San Francisco Bay Area. KTVU's Janet Katsuyama was there and has more tonight on their message.
What is going on here? They're going to cut our benefits? Are you kidding me? We earned this. We put our asses on the line.
U.S. veterans who fought for this country overseas now are standing their ground in a new fight on the home front.
They're talking about cutting back on mental health. They're talking about cutting back on dental, on vision, on medical health.
It's a frightening prospect to have those services cut back.
Veterans and VA health providers gathered outside the Santa Rosa VA Health Center Wednesday as part of a national day of veterans protest. This week, the Trump administration's new Veterans Affairs chief sent out a memo announcing plans to cut more than 80,000 VA jobs. The memo stated Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency will work with the VA on an initial goal cutting staffing to 2019 levels of just under 400,000 employees. That's on top of cuts already made.
My primary caregiver has been cut back to 2/3 time.
Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump just removed sexual assault response prevention from the military as a whole.
The White House said President Trump's cuts aim to make the VA more efficient, saying in a statement the president, quote, refuses to accept the VA bureaucracy and bloat that has hindered veterans' ability to receive timely and quality care. In 2024, the VA had 9 million veterans enrolled, a record high, after the VA expanded during the Biden administration to help younger veterans impacted by burn pits and toxic chemicals.
We finally got that approved, and people are coming forward now to get their benefits. And now all those claims that are sitting at the region level to be examined and approved are all frozen because of this.
The Bay Area has more than a dozen VA clinics, some already seeing layoffs.
Which is creating a great deal of stress and demoralization and feeling any day that they don't know what's going to happen to them.
People can earn more in the private sector. We were always struggling against that when it came to hiring primary care providers. And so you always feel like you don't have enough staff.
Many veterans and their families feel the White House is breaking a national promise.
If I signed up and did what I was supposed to do to protect this country, that they would be standing behind me, and this VA is part of that.
This is very disrespectful to those men that put their lives on the line.
Jana Katsuyama, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, a new kind of robo-taxi set to hit the Strip when Amazon's autonomous vehicles could be picking up passengers in Las Vegas. A new type of self-driving car is making its debut in the West. Fox's Sunny Sai shows us how the people behind Zoox want to transform the concept of robo-taxis in Las Vegas.
Sometime later this year, we will be seeing Zoox robo-taxis driving down the Strip behind me. These Amazon-backed vehicles are 10 years in the making, and one of the co-founders of the company tells me they want to redefine transportation.
Our vision of the future is not as many people will need to buy their own car.
Zoox is on the mission to transform what driving looks like. Their robo-taxis are autonomous vehicles that cater to the rider's experience.
This is the touchscreen. Every user has their own, and we can play with the climate here, so we can make it warmer or colder, change the fan speed.
Zoox robo-taxis don't look like standard cars.
We wanted to really create a social experience, right? So before cars, there were carriages, and they were like this because that is actually the natural way you want to interact with people.
Riders will be able to call their taxi on an app. Zoox says their rides will be competitively priced.
Over time, as the technology becomes more ubiquitous and lower cost, we will be able to lower the cost as well for our customers.
To make sure their robo-taxis are safe, Zoox has been testing on a few hundred vehicles with the same technology and sensors.
We've tried to make it the safest possible vehicle, not only from a sort of autonomy perspective, but even just from a passive crash perspective. So, for example, we have this amazing inverted double horseshoe airbag system that will envelop all the passengers when there's a crash.
While testing is always ongoing to make sure the robo-taxis are consistently safe, one autonomous vehicle expert says self-driving cars could make public roads safer.
It is a defensive style of driving. It is inherently safe. The decisions that get made by our technology move much, much quicker than the human brain.
Zoox robo-taxis are starting their first public rides here in Las Vegas and then in San Francisco. The company is focused on starting in dense cities before eventually expanding later on. In Las Vegas, Sunny Sai, Fox News.
All right, the next wave of robo-taxis rolling into Vegas soon. That does it for West Coast Wrap tonight. We appreciate you watching as always. And a quick reminder before we head out tonight, you can stay up to date on all the big stories we're covering for you across the West Coast by heading to our website. It's westcoastwrap.com. And please stream our shows on your smart TV. All you have to do is download the free Fox Local app. Have a great night.